You can't, yeah, you always have to be playing with your parents' toys. You can never have your own stuff. You always have to, it's always have to, there's always got to be Ghostbusters and Star Wars and Indiana Jones. You can't have these new things. We just have to constantly mine these old properties for everything they're worth.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to One Story Building, where stories are stored in our brains for all time. Today's guest is dog, queer, podcast host, video producer, and someone who definitely is a dog and not a man with long hair and a dimple chin. It's Rags. Hi, Rags.
Hi. Hello.
I got to say it in real time and not just in a text donation thing. I'm one of the lucky ones. Okay, so I have to start, of course, with two of the most basic introduction questions. What is it like being a dog on the internet?
Oh, well, it's all that I know. So I'm of course,
right,
because that's what I am, definitely. So I don't know. It's like saying, what's it like breathing? You know, you don't know any other way. So this is just my life, of course, because that's definitely what I am.
Yep.
But it works out. It's all right. I'm like Duchess from Aristocats. I have opposable thumbs when I need them, and I get along. People don't normally question things. I just glide through life.
That's right. And you're like Brian from Family Guy, where you being a dog is only referenced when it's a part of a joke.
Yeah, kind of. Did like in the comics, Garfield did John understand what Garfield was saying, or did he not? Because I don't remember. I think you could. I know there's a joke comic strip where it's Garfield without Garfield, or they just take Garfield out of all of the strips, and it's just John just like talking to himself, existing alone, and it's kind of funny in that context. But I never knew if people understood what Garfield was saying.
I think he did. I think John did react to what he was saying. Like, was Garfield always thought bubble speaking or text?
Yeah, it was always
bubble speaking.
Bubbles.
Huh. I never.
I think the fact that this is such a question that we really have to mull over is interesting, considering how many Garfield comics there have been. Though I will say the earlier stuff was way better than. Oh, yeah, that's right. The movies. I haven't seen the movies. I don't know if they're good or bad. But I think that, like many comics, it was best when it was good when it was early on, and then it just kept persisting, and it just really went down in quality, like Beetle Bailey and Wizard of Id.
Well, that just applies to all media ever. I mean, what's a movie or a comic or a video game series that has gotten better through time ever? Can you think of one?
There's been a lot of ups and downs, but as far as consistently getting better over time, I don't know. I bet. Then again, I'm a lot more critical of quality than most people would. I'm sure there's some people who would say Star Wars and things like that.
That got better.
Maybe. Yeah, some people might. I know there's crazy people, but
we'll get to that.
If we weren't counting the last couple shows, Star Trek would be so. It would be close. You know, I think it's been thoroughly good for the most part. It's been mostly good for the most part, not counting this last two outings, but
well, a second basic starter question is, of course, where did the name Rags come from?
Well, if there is a hope that there is some deep, insightful meaning or reference, then unfortunately you will be disappointed, because there's really no reason whatsoever that I chose that as a name. I just thinking of, of course, the end canon. That's what I was named when I was born, of course. But the channel question is, I don't know. It was just the thing that sounded like a sort of a short dog name, and it wasn't ceremonious. It wasn't like a try hard name. I'm not going for anything super poetic. It's just like, oh, Rags. That's just a dog's name. And then I discovered, actually, by total coincidence, that there was a children's song called Rags the Dog, which is legitimately a coincidence. I had no idea.
Yeah, it does sound like a dog's name, which is what happened when your mama puppy pushed you out and covered you in rags. Someone asked, "What is that?" And she was like, "Rags." Oh, the dog. Yeah, sure. Rags as well. Efficiency.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, him and his brother towel and swaddling cloth over there.
Yep, and handkerchief, your sister. So
You want your fun fact for dog names? You know where Fido comes from, right?
No.
Fido is from the Latin fidelis, or faithful.
Wow,
that's where we get Fido from.
That's a lot fancier than rags. Rags is from Regalius, the Greek warrior.
Yes, it's a local declension of Rex, where Rex is Latin for king. So we see a dog named Rex. That's what it is.
Right. Someone just mispronounced it.
Rex, like an Australian. Oh, is that Rex? Rags? No, Rex. I said Rex.
No, that's how New Zealanders speak. Australians are a little bit more refined, in my opinion.
Oh, okay. Well, that was all right. I gave it a good try. If I ever go to Australia, I won't fit in.
I guess so. Yeah, we don't really see many dogs that are. What is your breed? What kind of dog are you? We'll get off the whole dog suit, the whole dog scene, the whole dog thing very soon.
We'll establish our branding, which is very important. I'm a Shiba Inu.
Right. Oh yeah, that's what that cryptocurrency is.
Yes, Dogecoin. Yeah, the whole Doge stuff. It's a Shiba Inu. I always liked them. They were very memey and they weren't like, oh, I'm gonna be a wolf or I'm gonna be a dragon. Nah, it's calm down. Okay, it's just I'm gonna be a dog.
Yeah,
right.
Fun, approachable.
Yeah. Yes, fun and approachable.
Quite like yourself. Yes, indeed.
Absolutely. I'm very fun and approachable.
Well, speaking of you, when you were first making your online content, your video producing, and you were talking about the idiocy of the world and media and other people, when you were first starting, what exactly was your motivation?
The first videos that I made were they were PC and console videos. I would talk about why PC was better than playing on console, and this is going back to a time. It was the environment was a little bit different in terms of console and PC, but it just interested me. It started out as nothing but a hobby, and I got into PC gaming, and I knew there were all these channels who were super duper fanboys of these of consoles and stuff, and they just lie and say these crazy things about PC, and I just made the swap over. And so I was inspired by some other channels who did similar stuff, and I said, you know what, I'm going to get my little doggy picture. I still have my original one. I just slapped some shades on them, and I started talking about console and PC. I did that for a while until I got bored of it and decided to do other stuff. But it just started out as a hobby. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's how it applies to everyone. I mean, who starts a YouTube channel and immediately makes money other than like Will Smith or Jack Black?
Insanely lucky people. Whenever people ask about on EFAP, people say, I'm thinking about making a channel, thinking about making stuff and videos and things. What advice do you have? And one of the first things we always say is, like, don't expect to just make a channel and have it blow up and you're the next internet sensation or anything like that. Just do it because you enjoy doing it, because it's an outlet for your creativity, because you enjoy it as a hobby. And if you get a following, then that's great. And that's kind of, you've won at that point, as far as I'm concerned. If you can get a little, you make some side cash doing it, even better. But really, it's just finding like a little audience and a little community of people you can, have fun with. And I think that's a win if that's what becomes of it.
Yeah. And the grim reality of making any sort of content like that is that to have a big audience, eventually you have to make content that you just don't care about. And that's just no fun.
Unfortunately, yeah. For some people, they do that, and you could tell that there's just no heart in a lot of stuff. Luckily, a lot of people don't have much of a care. A lot of people just sort of passively, they don't listen to really what they're saying. But yeah, it's been a big, it's one of our other pieces of advice we give to people is you need to make something that you actually care about, something you're passionate about, something that you want to talk about. Because when you're sitting down and editing software and you gotta do voiceovers and get pictures and split up clips and things, and your heart's not in it, boy, it's a slog. It is editing is not exactly a fun thing to do necessarily. You gotta you got to really kind of be in the creative mindset to enjoy that sort of thing. And it's not for everyone. And if you're just doing something you don't care about, then it is a chore.
Mm-hmm. Well,
do something you love.
You speak off the cuff very often. You very often don't script your videos. So when you're just talking off the top of your head, is that because of laziness or efficiency?
I don't think it's really either. I think a lot of the stuff that you might be responding to doesn't need a script. It feels more, I guess, natural in a conversational sense. If you're responding to someone or you are kind of responding to them, but at the same time, you're recognizing that you're really talking to your audience more than anyone else. There's kind of a, it's sort of natural. It feels more real. Of course, every once in a while I will script. I will put together some paragraphs if I really need to keep my thoughts in order and make sure that I hit certain points. But for a lot of stuff, yeah, it's just I'll say some things. I'll do a number of takes until it kind of comes out right. But it's it just comes across as more sincere. Maybe is the word. No, maybe not. It's hard to really say. Some people when they make their videos, you can tell that they are just reading from a script and their eyes are glued on the script and they're not speaking it aloud as if they're kind of talking more naturally. And you could hear the script. You could see the words on the page that they're reading. And I never really cared for that. It's almost like it puts up a barrier between me hearing them and then speaking.
Yeah, well, hopefully people can understand that I myself ask these questions right off the top of my head. Now, excuse me as I look over here for no reason. Over the years, your avatar has changed, your audio has changed. During the whole process of you making your videos, what key moments and key defining times tell you that you need to start upgrading your quality of the technology of your videos?
So when I started with Windows Movie Maker. Oh boy, Windows Movie Maker. Now that's a program right there. That is that's the kind of stuff that you quickly learn is not well suited for certain kinds of content. It is extremely basic, as rudimentary as they come in terms of making video stuff. And when my videos got longer and longer, it just wouldn't support longer projects. When it loaded, it wouldn't load them all the way and it would just cut stuff out and it was a nightmare. So I had to swap to something else. So that was kind of a necessity thing. So all right, I got Sony Vegas and I learned that. Aesthetics wise, I think I've just always kind of wanted to make things nice, constantly sort of improve the quality of the channel and the sort of production value of the channel. There's always been this, I didn't want to settle on a certain quality level. I wanted to imply that it was always getting better, you know? I didn't want to just settle on something I wasn't really happy with. So I'd get this and I was like, okay, that's good. And I got this picture. Okay, great. How can I expand that? I was like, I'll get all these and then I'll get all the bodies and heads and then I'll get the one I've been using recently. And I want it to look nice, kind of, you know. I think that a lot of people appreciate a video that looks good, and it's not just I don't even know how to really say it. I need to think about how I phrase it. I've always wanted to sort of improve the visual quality of videos over time, as I think we kind of all should in at least some way. Maybe if it isn't visual, it's audio wise, but you want to be able to look back years ago and say, yes, my videos are better than they used to be.
Yeah, but as we all know, audio when it comes to YouTube videos is more important than video. It's like audio is what people actually are watching, and the video, but it being a good quality video is just an added bonus.
Yeah, we tell people if you are going to really buy anything to start making YouTube videos, if you're going to splurge on something, a microphone is the way to go. You want to have a good microphone. Visuals are so, right? You can have good visuals. Obviously, if you're going to make an animation channel, that's one thing, but visuals for the most part whatever you just make is going to be fine. You could commission someone to get a picture done. You could sit in front of your webcam and tidy up your room behind you. You could get a sheet or something. That part's not difficult, but there is a personal nature that audio has that visuals don't quite have. You can close your eyes and all the visuals go away, but you can't just stop hearing. It's kind of like this. It's when someone talks to you, it's like they're going into you. It's coming through your headset or your whatever it is, and it has that kind of personal nature to it. And you can't just make the sounds go away. So you need to make sure the sounds that you're putting in your videos are nice, or else people will go away because they don't want to physically, like, if it's uncomfortable to listen to you, then they'll leave. Nothing's worse than bad audio. Ugh.
Well, your video quality is, of course, great, and you are one of the only people that I can think of off the top of my head where it's an animated character drawing that shifts and changes, and the mouth opens and closes sometimes, and it isn't a person in a suit with a weird head, like a plague doctor mask or like some sort of weird ball. It's just a dog. So you're going against the grain of being not a person in a suit with a weird head. Like that
was a big thing. I was always okay with. I didn't want to do this suit thing, of course, because of course you can anthropomorphize an animal as much as you want, but I just didn't want to go that route. And it takes a lot. That's what takes a lot of work. That's one of the reasons I'm not just going to be doing that all the time, because it slows down video making a whole bunch, saying all the lines, and then matching up the particular picture to the words and the timeline. That just takes a long time if you're swapping heads every 2, 3, 4, 5 seconds or whatever it is. But I'm glad it has a style that you really like. I legitimately am glad, because I have a whole bunch of that stuff, and I think it looks really good. I've gotten a lot of use out of it, and I'll continue to. It's an idea that I enjoy. Like, it's sort of animated, but not really. But it's kind of like it sort of is, and it's a good middle line. I think it's something I can do, because I cannot draw at all. So I can at least assemble all of those things and put them in, and it looks good.
So as you were going along your video producing journey, as you were responding to more and more things, can you remember the first moment that you got any kind of controversial big backlash to what you were saying?
I don't know. Every once in a while, someone might tweet about you, and then people are like, fuck that guy. Yeah. But not really. I think I've, for the most part, avoided a lot of controversy. And if I haven't, maybe I've just forgotten about it, just maybe for the best. You don't want to dwell on those things. EFAP certainly gets them every once in a while. The tweet goes around of, oh, you made a 12-hour podcast and a woman. What a bunch of loser incel virgin nerds. Oh, they're terrible. But that's really about it. We just laugh about that stuff now. You just get used to it, I think. You just get kind of used to being on the internet space, and then when people will say ridiculous things about you, and a lot of people will just believe it. But you just get used to it.
Yeah, and I guess the devoted fan base sort of tips the scales in a better direction.
It helps a lot. Yeah, it helps a whole lot to know that you've got a lot of people who will support you, and to kind of know how things really are, and they've got your back, and they're going to help you out. It's very, very important, because some people, they can thrive in these contentious negative spaces, and that just gives them energy. But for most people, you got to be able to, you got to step away from social media. Don't read all the things that people say about you on the internet, on random tweets and threads and stuff, because half of it's probably lies, and they try to extrapolate everything about who you are. You can't dwell on that, and you can't surround yourself in it. You need to be in a supportive environment, not be surrounded by yes men, but be in a supportive environment with people who really do kind of care about what you do, and they like your stuff, or else you'll just be a nervous wreck. Humans are just not built for it. So you have to really control what you sort of the environment you're in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But people didn't evolve to be able to listen to a million people talking to them all at once.
Yeah. I mean, how does you see a thread and it's got 10,000 likes and they're all just like, yeah, this guy, I hate him, what an awful person. And you're just like, I don't know, I'm not an awful person. Why would? And it feels bad to know that a lot of people think that about you, especially just because someone else said it and they just went along with it. But so there's a lot of dumb people, and you just let them be off in their own little thing. Don't worry about it. Just press forwards, ignore them, move on. Being successful and continuing to stay active is the best thing you can do to get back at them.
Yeah, great. Yes, success is the best revenge. And speaking of success,
yeah, kind of.
EFAP, you apparently, if my memory serves, met Mauler, the long man himself, through The Last Jedi, as in his response to The Last Jedi. But how exactly did you two meet up and start EFAP?
So after The Last Jedi came out, and I met him because when The Last Jedi came out, he made a video talking about how bad it was. I saw that video, and that was kind of the video for him that really went viral and sort of really, rocketed him up into success. Because sometimes that's how it happens. You make videos for years and years and years and years, and then you have that super successful video that's made at the right time, talking about the right topic, and the algorithm is just kind enough, and it spreads and spreads and spreads. And then whether you can keep riding that wave, and now that you've got everyone there, are you gonna, can you make a career out of it or a channel out of it? Some people can, some people can't. But I saw that video of his and I reached out to him. It was like an email, or it might have even been like the YouTube message system that doesn't exist anymore. Yeah. But I forget how I actually did it. And we just did a little live stream talking about Star Wars, and we decided we would go ahead and make a podcast because coincidentally, myself, Fringy, and at the time Wolf, we had just we'd coincidentally met each other, or we happened to have known each other from the past. It was really quite an incredible coincidence. We all happened to meet up kind of in the same way, right next to each other, and that's how the podcast pretty much started. We started doing some live streams with Mahler and Wolf and myself, and those a few proto EFAP streams. Then we officially made a podcast, and we asked what name it should be. Every Frame of Pause was born, and we've been going ever since.
Why is it called Every Frame of Pause?
Because we watch a video and we respond to it, and when we start talking, we pause their video. So instead of every frame of painting or something like that, it's every frame of pause, because we're pausing the video and we're talking. That's why we can cover a 20-minute video by someone else, and it takes us 2-3 hours to get through it. We have many things to say. Yeah, but that's sort of our deal. Long podcast, we talk a lot.
All of you are just so insightful. So it warrants a 12-hour video for a 2-minute video.
I mean, that's how it's always been with response stuff, really. It takes you just a moment to say a lie, and it could take minutes and minutes and minutes to explain why the thing is a lie. It takes way more time to fix things than it does to destroy them.
Well, speaking of responding to stuff, as of now, we're currently trudging through the Obi-Wan Kenobi show, and I got Disney Plus because of The Mandalorian, and then I got rid of Disney Plus because of The Mandalorian. So now I have watched the Book of Boba Fett, and so far the what's been done with Obi-Wan so far through EFAP. I avoided spoilers. I didn't watch the Obi-Wan Kenobi show or the Boba Fett show. I waited for EFAP to do it themselves. So how do you feel about people like me that watch TV shows for free through you?
You get a different. First, a lot of people do that in our audience because they know the shows are going to be terrible. They don't want to pay to just watch a terrible show. And what we do, it's clearly a different experience than watching the show. A lot of stuff gets cut out. Not everything we say makes it into final cuts. It is edited and it has addendums, and it highlights a lot of the things that we say. And of course, it is a bunch of people who are quite familiar with Star Wars and like to think we know a thing or two about telling stories well. But clearly, just watching these shows and watching us talk about them, two totally different experiences. if I wouldn't watch these shows myself, like, but watching them with friends, making fun of them and doing them for other people as entertainment, that absolutely, I'll watch them all day for that.
Did you assume that the Book of Boba Fett and the Obi-Wan Kenobi show, did you assume that those would be bad and you would EFAP it?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
After we watched, I got to keep my shows in order. We watched, I think it was the second season of Mandalorian, because the first season is not good. I think it just sort of snuck. A lot of its issues are more subtle, but the second season of Mandalorian was so bad. We started to just watch every individual episode and record it and make little EFAP minis out of it. And that sort of set us on the path, because people really, really enjoyed that. And we enjoyed making fun of it. So that set us down the path of watching these Star Wars shows or Disney shows and doing what we did with Batwoman, where we'd watch episodes, record ourselves watching them, make fun of them, do our edits. And the Disney shows they're perfect for that, because they're so poorly written. There's so many problems. And because we have a lot of knowledge about Star Wars, we could point out, that's a contradiction, to something that's been established earlier. That's a plot issue. His character would never do this. So you'd pick up a lot. There's a lot of just in the moment logical issues that anybody should be able to pick up on. But having a background knowledge of Star Wars like we do, it helps a lot.
Famously, during the episode, the last episode finale of season 2 of The Mandalorian, Star Wars Theory, the Star Wars channel, Star Wars Theory, responded to Luke Skywalker showing up with many a tear, many a feelings, and you also famously mocked him and derided him for expressing these feelings. And I am going to give you the chance right now to apologize to Star Wars Theory for mocking his feelings. Go.
Oh, well, I'm afraid you might be disappointed, because I stand by everything I said. Because I hold, as I still do, my position was always, emotions, particularly those kinds of emotions, are not things that you should certainly dispense with lightly. I think that particularly when you look at Luke, what is it about Luke that you liked? What was it? Was it his character? Because we didn't see his character in the episode. Was it his voice or anything like that? Because he didn't sound like Luke. It was I don't know if that was the one where they used their little robot voice changer generator thing that Disney uses now. But the idea that you're going to see this skinwalker, this simulacrum of a character from a movie years and years and years ago, and you're going to cry when you see him. I think there's a level of maturity that you should have if it's so meaningless to see them in that kind of a situation. Obviously, the feelings, and you could do whatever you want with him, but I think we should have our standards a little bit higher than that. What if because everyone has their own personal breaking point on this. What if he saw Luke Skywalker on a poster as he was walking by and he started crying then? Would that be acceptable? What if Luke Skywalker was on a mug? What if Luke Skywalker was on someone's wristwatch and he saw it and he started crying then? Where would all of these people find it no longer acceptable to have those kinds of feelings? And when I saw that episode and we saw Luke, it wasn't him. It looked like him, and maybe it sounded like him, but it wasn't him. And so I wonder what it was that you liked about Luke. Was it just the imagery? Is it just a picture of a young Mark Hamill that was enough to do it for you? Because if that's the case, then I mean, I don't know. It's like a lot of things in Star Wars. What exactly did you fall in love with? Did you fall in love with a character? Clearly not, because when the character is violated, you don't care. You clap and you cheer because you saw a lightsaber or you saw their computer-generated visage. I do stand by all the things that I've said, and I don't take them back.
All right. I guess he should have seen through the artifice where the TV show was trying to tug on his nostalgic heartstrings. It was a trick. It was a trap, as they say.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, he probably should have. He should know better. A lot of people should know better, because that's Disney's particularly now, that's just all they try to do. Remember this, remember this, remember this. Look, it's a thing. It's the thing. It's so artificial and it's so cynical the way that they produce these things, and the fact that people just fall head over heels for it and they totally buy into it. It's kind of depressing. And I don't know, honestly, grow up.
Yeah, there are no more stories anymore. There are just franchises and images that can be mined out of people's nostalgia. Funko Pop.
It really is, yeah. It's the ultimate sort of franchising. Remember this, the series, but with none of the soul of what made those things good in the first place.
Yeah, aren't they making Beetlejuice 2? Like,
I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if they did. I never watched Beetlejuice. I never saw it, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if they did.
Yeah, I mean, Beetlejuice is a little bit before my time, and I'm getting up there in age. Like, how old are the people who are going to be fans of Beetlejuice to go and see Beetlejuice 2? Like
Ghostbusters.
Yeah, it's just people are just fans of something when they're 10, and then that nostalgia just carries them for the rest of their life. We can't like new things.
You can't. Yeah, you always have to be playing with your parents' toys. You can never have your own stuff. You always have to. There's always got to be Ghostbusters and Star Wars and Indiana Jones. You can't have these new things. We just have to constantly mine these old properties for everything they're worth.
But who's to blame? Is it the people making it or the people buying it? Is it them or us?
It's both. It's definitely, a lot of this is absolutely a bottom-up problem. I think people's standards are just abysmally low. People will clap at basically anything they see a reference, and they just go off the rails with it. And I mean, Disney, of course, they're not hiring good writers. They're not hiring people who can tell good stories anymore. They don't care about continuity and the character and good narratives, but people eat it up, and that's the thing that apparently they love. So it's both. It really is both. Disney wouldn't do it if people didn't like it. If people didn't flock to this stuff in droves, then Disney would make something else.
The Mandalorian. I bought Disney Plus because of it, and then I got rid of Disney Plus because of it. But then when the Book of Boba Fett was announced, I thought to myself, okay, good. They've tested the waters a little bit with the Mandalorian, so now they can do with Boba Fett what they tried to do, didn't really succeed in doing with the Mandalorian. And then when Boba Fett came out and I watched it through EFAP, I thought, wow, this is even worse than the Mandalorian. But then when Obi-Wan Kenobi was announced and it was released, before I saw it, I thought, okay, now good. Now they've got this smaller insular story where Obi-Wan is going to be doing this like family drama thing with Owen and Beru and Luke. He's not going to, bless you, he's not going to go to other planets and do a bunch of crazy nonsense. He's going to stay in one place, and it's going to be a deep emotional journey. And then from what I've seen so far, it's worse. Obi-Wan is worse than Boba Fett, which is worse than the Mandalorian. What do you think is, I mean, Andor, that's going to be such nothing. Ahsoka, why do you think it keeps getting worse?
Because people's standards continue to be very low, and they don't hire people who can write well. You have what you thought Mandalorian would be about, a bounty hunter. There's basically no bounty hunting at all in the show, really. It's just a guy going around, just some shooties happen, and there's this baby, and that's what it was. And then you watch Boba Fett. Okay, well, this will be cool. It'll be about this, that, and the other. No, it was whatever you thought it was going to be about. It wasn't that thing. I have no idea what they were thinking, making the Boba Fett show have that plot. Bizarre to me. Kenobi, surely it'll be a character focused semi-drama because he's on Tatooine watching over Luke, and the trailer implies he talks to Owen about all the the Jedi stuff, and he wants them to keep away. Nope, that was just there for trailers. You got 5 minutes of that, and now we're just back to regular Star Wars where we're planet hopping and all this nonsense happens, and then they ruin him just like everyone else they touch. They ruin them. It's never what you think it's gonna be, and not in a good way. Like what a clever subversion. No, it's just,
it subverted your expectations.
It's never what you think these shows are going to be, because what you think these shows are going to be is probably based off of some level of this base logic that you have, that, oh, okay, this is probably going to be about that because it's this character. Nope, it's going to be something completely different that doesn't make sense in any way. And it all devolves into the same sludge in the end.
Well, how do you think we can rectify this horrible domino effect into the abyss?
You and I stop
Sure.
giving them money for this sort of thing. Stop praising it. Stop giving it money. If the reason they do what they do is because it makes a lot of money, they don't care, because people don't care if they see Kenobi grab an innocent person and use them as a meat shield against stormtroopers. People don't care because, oh, stormtroopers, blasters, wow, how, oh my goodness, isn't this exciting and amazing? I sure love it, because people don't care. People don't care about good stories. People don't care about consistent characters. People don't care about good world building. They might say they do, but they don't. And you would expect the people with these big Star Wars channels to care the most about this sort of thing, but they don't. Ooh, we got a flashback. Oh my gosh, Hayden Christensen's back. They don't care. They don't care really. They don't care about characters and stuff like that. It makes you wonder what you fell in love with.
They clapped. They clapped when they saw it, as they say.
They did clap. They did. They legit did. It's so accurate. They clapped when they saw it. ATST, clap, clap. Oh my gosh, I remember that. Oh wow, a red lightsaber. I love Star Wars, because that's what Star Wars is red lightsabers and ATSTs. It's not characters and plots, and they're having meaningful dialogue, and there's growth, and no, it's just imagery now, and people fall head over heels for it, and it's depressing, and that's why Star Wars is going to be crap forever.
Yeah, I hate to agree, but I agree. So EFAP, back to EFAP. Wolf was there from the very start, but even very early on, he was very on and off when it came to his appearances on the show. And then eventually in February of 2020, he left semi-permanently to work on himself and his own mental health, to which I say, fair enough. But you've stuck around. So what sort of personality or hardened skin must someone have to do what you do?
Whenever you say contentious things, whether it's about Star Wars, the pushback we get for damn Star Wars shows, the lies people tell about us, we get called everything. We hate women, we're Nazis, the whole 9 yards. You just have to, it's like I was kind of alluding to earlier, you got to put yourself in supportive environments. You can't constantly focus on the negativity. And there does need to be a kind of personality that I guess I suppose everyone does it differently. Some people focus on, they take a combative approach to it. Like, I'll show them, I'll be successful. I will do the thing that I like with the people that support me. And by being successful and getting bigger and bigger and never going away, it's the ultimate middle finger back to them. Or some people, they don't even just engage with that at all. They focus totally on what they're doing. Some people just avoid social media entirely, which I don't go on social media much. But I don't know. I think people sort of do it in their own different ways, but it's definitely not for everyone. It really isn't for everyone. There's a lot of cruel people out there who use anonymity to be a part of this just mob that says terrible things about you and believes all the lies about you, and they don't check and they don't care. And that's just an aspect of the internet, and it's just the nature of how it works, unfortunately.
In February of 2018, you responded to I Hate Everything's video regarding the Last Jedi. But before I get into that specifically, off the top of your head, what do you think people who love The Last Jedi just aren't getting?
They clearly don't put a lot of importance on continuity, whether it's with characters or just the logical progression of events. They focus on meta things like the subversion of expectations. The Last Jedi was like a watershed movie for internet criticism on film. It's what birthed many careers. It birthed Maulers, essentially. It created our podcast, and it has ever since really been, it's been the biggest blow to Star Wars that's ever been made. And I think the people who like that, they think that there are certain artistic elements in filmmaking that supersede basic sense and continuity and consistency. They'll praise characters and meta narratives when they don't make any sense in the world, when they don't show any consistency, when they're contradictory. They'll focus on some, like I said, some meta subversion of what you might expect to happen. They will almost in a just look down on the idea of Star Wars fans and what they might want, and at the same time devalue it. It was the Last Jedi was what birthed the whole, it's just a movie about space wizards for children. It's just this immense devaluing of what the series had and the things that it could do. I got it the other day on YouTube. Someone had posted a scene from Kenobi, and I said in the comments, like, well, this causes a huge issue, because why, if Vader can do this here, how come he didn't do it in this movie, and that would have changed the plot immensely. Like, they've added something that retroactively damages his character and makes things not make sense. And someone was like, oh, it's a movie about magic and space, it's not that deep. And like this, it's the immense devaluing of what Star Wars used to be, and it's frustrating.
And in your response to I hate everything's video about The Last Jedi, you said this bunch of text. I'm going to say it all right now, and then we're gonna talk about it. Okay, here we go.
Oh boy, that's a long time ago.
Yeah, to 2018. My God, 2018. Take me back to 2018 when The Last Jedi came out and everything was so interesting. Okay, you said, yeah, it's silly for people on the internet to decide who and who isn't a true fan of something. Again, why are you finding these comments which you yourself try to paint as irrelevant and not worthy of your time, even though you address these kinds of things so much in this video instead of the actual criticisms of the movie that should be taken into account? What you've been doing so far is you've been avoiding legitimate criticisms of Star Wars: The Last Jedi, and you've been saying, but look at this comment I found, look at these things that I think might be happening, look at these little bitty comments that people leave that don't have anything to do with anything. You are clearly avoiding things that should be talked about, and you're using these comments to represent criticism as a whole of The Last Jedi. And that, I'd never really seen anything like this to this degree, where it's a movie about space wizards intended for children. The people who are complaining are angry men on the internet. Can you think of any time when something like that happened to this potency before for a movie or a video game or anything?
There probably has been, but off the top of my head, I can't think of too many. It's the same thing. It's happening already with the Lord of the Rings. How there's already huge backlash on this new Lord of the Rings show because it seems like they're focusing on all the wrong things, and people don't want that series to be touched, and it's all being. It's like with TLJ, right? Rose Tico is a shit character. She's awful. She's legit. She's morally repugnant and awful. And then you say these comments, and then you say, "Oh, you just hate Asians." Riva in Kenobi, she makes a lot of weird, bafflingly dumb decisions, and she does a lot of goofy stuff, and it all gets boiled down to, oh, well, you just don't like her because she's black. Or it's the same thing. We can find comments. It's the internet, and you can find someone who's saying anything about anything. There's so many people saying things that if you want to latch on to some random person, you can find that random person. There's always someone out there who will say the thing that you can use for ammunition. But it's disingenuous if the discussion just isn't about those things.
So why do you think people are just so dismissive of these legitimate criticisms? What do they get out of it?
Oh, if you don't have to, if you don't have to address a legitimate criticism, which might be really a big problem for the thing that you like or are trying to defend, don't worry about it. Just find BarfyMan369XX47, who in this one YouTube comment 2 weeks ago that you could scroll down, buried in a random comment section, he said something mean. And if I can go after that instead and then say, I can't believe Star Wars fans are saying this, well, it makes you look a lot better because you're fighting for truth and justice and all that wonderful stuff. And you don't have to pick a battle that you might lose. You can just talk about Barfy Man. And oh my gosh, isn't he terrible? Gosh, it's so easy for me to say that's a nasty thing he said. which isn't even really an argument. But anyway, it makes you look better. It's like picking your battles in the most disingenuous way you can when the elephant in the room goes unaddressed.
Well,
Wow, voice crack there.
I didn't want to bring it up.
Unaddressed.
There we go. Very good. Speaking of labeling and dismissiveness, in your January 2020 video, writer blames the fans for Star Wars woes. You say this: trolls, of course, trolls. They're all trolls. If you have a problem with the film, you are a troll. If you think Rian Johnson did something bad and you explain to him what he did wrong, just a troll. If you have any criticism of the film, you're just a troll. Any issue, any problem, anything at all, you're just a troll. You see, it's easy. This is what they do. Label and dismiss. Label and dismiss. This is what people do. And the question is, how exactly can you tell that someone is or is not a troll?
I don't think I can give you an ultimate kind of it's complicated, particularly on the internet where often it'll just be a short bit of text. It's sort of a catch-all name for a general kind of behavior. A troll is typically someone who's trying to get a reaction out of you, someone who's trying to stir the pot and create issues for its sake. A troll isn't someone who cares about something and is wrong, or who has a passion for something and just happens to maybe word things less than amicably. A troll is a kind of, it's someone who goes in to stir the poo. They're out there to get a reaction out of you. And if you dismiss everything as being because trolls are people that you can't actually dismiss. They're just there to get a reaction. There is a kind of comment, not all trolls, but there is a kind of comment that you really should just not pay attention to and forget doesn't exist. Now, an emergent point can come out of an attempt at trolling. Someone might try to say something that gets on your nerves, or try to say something that makes you angry, and there might inside of that almost accidentally be a point that's worth discussing. But for the most part, generally people, I don't think most people are trolls anyway. I think most people actually have some level of care and concern about what they're commenting on, and there's some kind of a point that they're actually trying to make. Maybe that's what you kind of want to look for, is the person trying to make a point or presenting some kind of an argument. If they are, then they're probably not a troll. And if they are trolling using arguments, then it's almost like the troll part of them is irrelevant, because they've actually presented some kind of an argument or some kind of a thought. But I don't know. It can be hard on the internet to really know who's who. But there is a level of kind of good faith that you can take with a lot of comments and treat them as if they're serious.
Well, I'm sure that you were called a troll many a time during the years roundabout like 2014, 2018, when video games were finally under attack in a big media journalism kind of way. You had GamerGate, Anita Sarkeesian, Brianna Wu. Now, I'm not entirely aware or up to date with what happened during that time, but you responded to a lot of the videos. Well, in your sort of opinion, can you give us a brief description of that time when video games were under the knife?
Video games got to be of a certain level of popularity, I think, where people who wanted to push particular social or political messages could use those as a point of commonality. They could talk about something that was popular enough that everyone sort of understood them and was involved with them, to make waves, either because it's a thing people cared about. It got big enough and popular enough that you could go out there and you could talk about how women are oppressed and use video games as your model to do that. And in a way, it's sort of it was a tactical maneuver, because most people who play like hardcore games are men, very, very predominantly men. And if you go out and talk about, claims of sexism and everything, and mostly men respond to you and they don't agree with you, then it's easy to say, they just look at all these misogynists and same as it ever was. It's just video games were used, I feel, by people who, I don't even know how much they really liked video games or played them. I even think Anita herself, Sarkeesian, I think she said something along the lines of, she said she didn't care. There's stuff that came out after she got into the spotlight where she'd tell all the lies and stuff about the things in games and extrapolate to ridiculous degrees to push a message. And stuff came out about her, before then, talking about how she didn't care about games, and games were just a tool for her to run a con. Ultimately, it's a shame that I guess she chose to do those things, and a lot of people ran to the defense of the woman in need. But I think foulness can come from any gender is certainly what I've discovered. But the arguments weren't good.
Yeah. Didn't she raise like 200 grand and then made just a bunch of talking at the camera in front of a green screen videos?
Yeah,
with $200,000.
Yeah, she raised all. That's why I think she's like, it's legit like con artistry where they're raising all this money to produce this series that never got finished. That was essentially just you standing in front of a green screen talking about some games, which is something that you need approximately no money to do, really. That one of their Patreon rewards was like 10,000 whatever dollars to open a Discord, and just ridiculous things like that. It has scam written all over it, but some people, they'll just defend anyone with the right politics, regardless of how sincere they are. And it was a mess. It really was. But I'm glad we got that all settled. Of course, GamerGate is always it's the boogeyman you can always dredge up and lie about it being, no, it's about gamers hating women. That's what GamerGate was. That's definitely what it was. Oh no. Every once in a while it still gets brought up.
What is GamerGate? I don't really know.
Without getting into it into much detail, GamerGate was a pushback against against industry corruption. It started with, I have to remember I just forget. It was some reviewer was sleeping with the person whose game she reviewed and things like that, and it got called out, and there was a lot of industry corruption that was going on with things, and people wanted more ethics in video game journalism, and that got extrapolated into, all these gamer boys, they just hate women and we have to protect women, and that's good to do. So it's essentially the gist of it. And yeah, it's pretty clear a lot of the stuff that got it started. I never really got huge into it. I guess I was a part of it, but I never got into the movement itself. But it really is, it really shouldn't have been anything contentious, but I suppose it's easier to cry sexism instead of saying, yeah, maybe I shouldn't sleep with the people whose products I'm reviewing, and not disclose that.
Mm-hmm. Well, on the topic of sexism and the media, your 2020 video, Little Women and the Media Double Standard, you say this: time and time again, we see the double standards that are applied. Star Wars isn't really appealing to women generally. Therefore, Star Wars needs to change because Star Wars is the problem. But if men don't like Little Women, well, Little Women's perfect the way it is. How dare you even think about suggesting we should change something to appeal to men that generally women enjoy? No. It's the men who are the problem. It's the men who are the issue. So where do you think this kind of double standard originates?
Where it originates?
Yeah.
I think a lot of this is based off of the idea that you can take advantage of people's desire to want to have a level playing field. So if you go to something like video games or a male-dominated space and you say that it's not inclusive to women, I think that garners more sympathy than saying that, why won't you make this one IP or franchise or aspect that's really, really appealing to women, and why can't you make it more, I guess, masculine, give it more masculine appeal. I don't know. I think it's a tactic. It's a sort of a strategy that's used because I guess general attitudes that men and women have might be different, or because you can use the supposed plight of females to sort of garner a level of sympathy and therefore support. I mean, it happened for years and years. The whole believe women things, like if she's a woman, believe her because of that. And it's so, you'd never hear someone say, believe men because they're men. There's a lot of double standards, but for a lot of people, if they didn't have double standards, they wouldn't have any at all. there's no consistent principle. There's no principle behind anything, right? I don't think you should go around inserting yourself into things you have no interest in, really, to try and change it so people who aren't interested in it will become interested in it. I don't think that's something that you should necessarily do at all. It's not good if women aren't interested in something, and it's not good if men aren't interested in something. That those things alone it's not a problem. I don't think it's ever been. There might be some not examples, but exceptions to this. But it's fine to have mostly male spaces, and it's fine to have mostly female spaces. That's okay. Not everything has to be this, perfect mix of we have to get the perfect number of 50-50, or a thing needs to appeal to everybody.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with this applies to many things, but the acquisition of power. The reason why
definitely
the reason why feminists want women to be in more spaces isn't because they want women to have a good time. It's because they think that women think like them, and they will push their agenda because they're like them. They assume
it's another space to have power in. Absolutely. If we can insert ourselves into these gaming journalism institutions and these development teams, and if we can get into this community and get our tendrils into it, and we can install people or push to install people in it that are like-minded to us, that's another thing that we have control over. And we can assert changes in the popular culture through that means, even if we don't actually care about the culture itself, and culture is just a means to an end.
So what is the best way to combat this kind of bias?
Reward the good and don't support the bad things. It's to be very clear where what you enjoy. It's not to, if you obviously, good products are kind of key here. You want good games that are respectful to their franchises and respectful to the gamers, and the audiences who buy them, of course. So honestly, where you spend your money is a big part of it. And trying to watch who you give money to and what you do and do not support is a big deal. And also going on to YouTube and Twitter and wherever it is, and talking about how you want to protect your industry and protect the things that you like, and you do actually care about Warhammer or Star Trek or any of these other franchises. I think that it does change a lot of minds, and there's a lot of people who are like-minded to you that can rally behind you. But you want to have a solid principle as to why you're doing what you're doing. And that's something that can often be forgotten.
In your 2017 video, Hard Games Are Bad, you give examples like the Dead Space and Mass Effect franchises, where sequels watered down their own uniqueness. Dead Space was a horror game, and then it became a generic shooter. Mass Effect was an RPG for the most part, and then became a generic shooter. So giving every benefit of the doubt to the creators and the consumers, why do you think this watering down happens so often in games?
Just to appeal to a broader market. I think for sometimes it's sometimes it's probably that's how I phrase it. I think a lot of the times it doesn't happen as much now, maybe, but I'm not sure. Maybe it does. But for a while, certainly, there was this idea that certain kinds of games didn't have audiences and certain types of games just wouldn't sell. If you make generic first-person shooter kind of stuff, it will probably have more broad appeal than a super story-focused, like detective story. RTSs there's always, in order to make the most amount of money possible, we need to appeal to the most amount of people as we can. We want to have the biggest pool to draw from. And if that means we have to turn our survival horror game into a much more easily accessible, not very scary kind of experience so that all shooter people can enjoy it thoroughly, or in theory can enjoy it thoroughly, then that's something we need to do, because we need to really, the Dead Space train ain't going to last forever, and we need to ride this train and make as much money as we can. I think it's just it's this attitude of we need to take something that became, even though it became famous and beloved for being a thing specifically, we still need to take that name now that it's very well known, and we need to stretch it out into something different so that it doesn't retain too much of its identity, but it will make us the most money.
Or who has the time to play a game that might be too scary or too difficult or too inaccessible for whatever reason?
Well, turns out a lot of people do, but I suppose that attitude was not prevalent amongst producers. And I'm not going to go super I understand. I don't like it. I don't like it one bit, but I understand. It's easy for me to say don't appeal to a broader audience when I'm not the one putting up X millions and millions of dollars to make a game. It's not my money. I get it, but how many times, I mean, Dead Space 3 is regarded by literally every human in the history of mankind as the worst of the Dead Space trilogy. And there's a reason for that. A lot of people have a lot of negative things to say about Mass Effect 3, not just the ending, but some of the things that were in it. But Dead Space 1, Mass Effect 1, BioShock 1, they had this very unique kind of the character to them. And maybe they were a little difficult. Maybe they were a bit spoopy. Maybe they were whatever they were, right? And even though those are the games that brought these titles and these franchises into common parlance within gaming spheres, there's still the need. We have to go broader. We have to make more money. It's never enough success. But nowadays, you have so many games of so many different types, particularly on PC, that people are interested in. I hope the trend of trying to make a game for everyone goes away. I don't think it will, but I hope it certainly dies down. There's a reason why I play so many indie and AA level games now and not nearly as many AAA level games, because so many of them are just generic sludge that I just can't enjoy. There's just nothing there for me to sink my teeth into. They don't do anything particularly well. They might look pretty, but they're often just so meh and bland.
You mentioned BioShock Infinite, and BioShock Infinite you mentioned the BioShock franchise, and it made me think of BioShock Infinite. BioShock Infinite was a very interesting phenomenon because when it came out, so many people thought that it was just a masterpiece. A month later, now, and even like a month later, no one's talking about it. It was such an explosion and then nothing. I've never really seen it before that much.
It was it's kind of like it's the Marvel show before the Marvel show, where when it's like a lot of Disney shows too, these people, whenever a new show comes out or a new movie comes out and it's Marvel or Star Wars or whatever, it's the best thing in the world and it's incredible. What a triumph of cinema for the 2 weeks. And then people forget about it. A month later, the Moon Knight. When was the last time you heard someone talk about Moon Knight? Moon Knight came out and everyone's like, oh my gosh, it's so amazing, this characters and does the drama. It's so no one gives a fuck about Moon Knight anymore. No, that's gone. It's disappeared. No one talks about it. And if they do, it's like, it was okay, I guess. It's the same thing. BioShock Infinite stank. But I remember when it came out, all the hype and the cut scenes, and people loved it when it came out. I didn't. But nowadays, yeah, it's because there wasn't any substance in it. Turns out all the characters kind of suck. Turns out the gameplay was a huge downgrade from previous BioShock games. Turns out, the story that they wanted to focus so much on literally breaks its own rules, doesn't make sense. And that stuff just doesn't have staying power. It doesn't stick with people. BioShock 1, it has aged like fine wine. Anyone could go back to play BioShock 1. It has a unique style, an incredible setting. The gameplay was fun. The story was neat. It's a timeless classic. It's always going to be there, and you could go back and play BioShock 1 and it's so good. Even BioShock 2, which is probably better in terms of gameplay because they did a lot of changes to it. They added you a lot of options. They're so good to go back and play. But Infinite, like why would you go back and play that? It's just it's mediocre. It's bland mass appeal garbage.
I am genuinely worried about, for lack of a better phrase, the lack of attention span that people are having nowadays. I mean, like Moon Knight, it came out, it went away. All these shows, all these Marvel and Disney Star Wars shows, YouTube shorts, everything is just getting so short and firecrackery. Like, is there going to be a time when movies that go for more than an hour aren't made, or and there's no more longer content? I genuinely am worried about art for the future and how quick it's going to come and go.
I wouldn't. I mean, right now the super popular thing is the Disney mega corporate product franchise line. That's the big thing now. Nothing lasts forever. I hope that there's still, I think, I know it's easy to get caught up in the attitude of, art is like doomed, and certain things probably are doomed, but sometimes things have to die so something else can take its place, and sometimes you have to get over the bad so that things can get good again. But consider that, like when we talk about video games, the indie game scene has never been more diverse in terms of like game types and genres. There are so many AA level companies that are putting out all kinds of good stuff. It is like in terms of gaming, as much as we can, I think it's because the big AAA stuff takes away a lot of our attention because it's reported on the most. And these are the games that often push the boundaries of technology, and they have the most to spend on marketing. And you have these massive production companies that spend a gajillion dollars on it. And underneath those, you have all of this just fertile ground for all sorts of different stuff. So I think it just depends on where your focus is. I think a lot of AAA games. I just don't play AAA games for the most part. So few of them even interest me. And with a lot of movies and things, it's the podcast is what gets me to watch a lot of the Marvel stuff and the Disney stuff. But there's always good stuff being made. You just have to go find it. You have to look for it, and you have to give a lot of it a chance. But I'm pretty doomer on certain franchises specifically. Like Star Wars is doomed. Stuff like that. The MCU is just doomed. It has been for a while. But overall, there's still a lot of good stuff being made. And consider when you look back at, people always talk really, really excellently about 80s music and stuff, and maybe a lot of 90s music, things of that nature. But consider that while you're living through it, you don't have the filter of decades to get rid of all the bad stuff, So when something really bad happens, you're experiencing everyone discovering how bad it is. And so it seems more present than it might otherwise. But yeah, like I said, if reward the good and ignore the bad, give money to the shows and the movies and the companies that make the good stuff and encourage their behavior to continue. And don't give money to the huge franchise machines that have no soul and no artistic vision.
Well, you're giving me a lot of hope for the future. And on that note,
good.
on a message of hope, it brings me to the last question that I always ask when I do this. And that is, of course, why are stories important?
Stories are important for, of course, a lot of reasons. Those reasons might not always be the same from person to person. But much like the mythologies of ancient cultures that persist to this day that try and teach lessons, stories are an excellent way for us to learn about how we should be. And it sounds a little like artsy fartsy, but the human condition, and exploring your emotions and learning about principles and the foundations of morality and all the things that make you a good or bad person can be taught through a narrative, a fictional narrative, a story. You can construct scenarios where you have particular characters doing particular things for particular reasons. And you can use these to mirror events in the real world without actually having them happen in the real world. Stories are safe in that aspect. They are fictional. They aren't real. There are no real victims per se. But we latch on to the idealized heroism of characters, and we can, almost as if it's real, we can experience a tragedy and not want that sort of thing to happen in the real world. And because if something can be fictional but make us feel these strong, strong ways, then imagine how a real event could make us feel. They're teaching tools that will always be able to teach you. It's not just, you never stop learning. And stories can be catering to, to kids, to teenagers, to adults, to people of every age and every person. And I think they're important. They teach us about how we should be and ask us questions that might be difficult, and they help us grow internally. And also there's just enjoyment. You gotta have recreation. You have to have things to enjoy. You have to have things that spark your imagination so that you can feed into the, creation of culture. And there's all kinds of reasons why stories are important. And it's important that we continue to make them. We can't just latch on and we can't just rely on the past to have provided us with things. We got to make our own stuff because it's useful. It's meaningful.
Why don't you write a story? Why don't you make a movie or a game or a TV show?
I think that it's always, we all have thoughts in our heads of, if I was going to make a show, what would I make? If I was, in my story, we always play around with the fictional worlds in our own heads. I think a part of it is that there's probably a bunch of reasons. I'm not as interested in maybe, I don't know. It's hard to say. I don't feel like if Disney came to me tomorrow and said, Rags, dog that you are, here's just a massive pile of cash. We need you to make a Star Wars movie. Would I take it? And they say, you have total creative freedom. You could hire who you want to hire, do what you want to do. We just need you to make it. You have 3 years or whatever. Would I say yes to that? And I don't know. I think I would, but I just don't know. I mean, I don't know if I legit don't know. I haven't really thought about making any myself. I have certainly, even if people who put out terrible movies, there is some level of respect I have for the fact that you went out and did it, because making movies can be an absolute chore and a slog and a nightmare. But I don't know. Maybe I'm just not one for that kind of production. Maybe I just want to be in charge of my own thing, because I do make like art of its kind. I don't generally refer to it like that, but I make my own stuff, and the commentary I provide is its own thing. It's not a movie per se. It's not a story in and of itself, but I think what I do is productive, and I think what I do inspires people, and they really like it and they enjoy it. And I think I like what I do, and I'm not sure I would replace it with something else necessarily, but I don't know. I haven't really thought much about why I don't feel the desire to go out and make a movie or get involved in the film industry in that super direct way. Maybe it's really like what I do now.
Beautiful. Perfect. Mr. Rags, thank you so much for coming on to One Story Building.
Yeah, you bet. No problem at all.